Hey, this is Manny Moonraker, and I'm actually reporting live from the streets of Dallas. That's right, today UFO Buster Radio has gone mobile. But before I get into that, why don't we just cue the music? How can you not love that intro? And so, by the way, again, I am reporting live, and you hear the paper because I have a paper in my hand because this is the first time that I do the podcast episode not behind a computer, but this is episode 118, I believe. Excuse me, but you read what it says in the title of this podcast episode, so you know what we're going to talk about. It's about the Space Force. And if you look in the description, there is a link to an article there, which I have before me. And basically, the article is keeping us updated regarding what's happening with the Space Force. Now, usually I go into this spiel right now about following me on social media, because you kind of should by now. And if you're not, it is UFO Buster Radio on Twitter, Manny Moonraker and UFO Buster Radio pages on Facebook, and also at Manny Moonraker on Instagram, and also plus Manny Moonraker on Google. So I decided to test this whole mobile thing because I'm on Spreaker, as you guys know. This is where the podcast originates from. And they have this cute little deal where podcasters get to do their work mobile if they feel like it. So I'm not sitting in the studio. I'm not beside Bug the UFO Hunter. I'm actually out in the middle of Dallas right now. And this will work great. One day I'll just go out there like a gangster and start interviewing people at random and broadcast it here live on the podcast. But for today, we're running a test, see how it sounds. The bad part about this setup is that I can't hear anything. All I see is a VU meter going up and down, letting me know that something's going through. But I have no idea what it sounds like. Probably sounds like shit, but, you know, hey, something to work through. So let's talk about this article. And basically, it came out of spacenews.com. The title is Mathis, Reorganization of Military Space Force Already in Motion. Now, listen. A lot of you guys out there in ufology land, and even those who could give two shits about ufology, were making crazy jokes and memes. My favorite, of course, was the one that had the Space Force, verbiage on it, and they had Trump flying on top of a rocket like he was straddling it like it was a Bronco or something. That was my favorite by far. Loved it. But let's be honest, Trump administration, whoever you hired in order to put together those logos that you recommended, holy shit, they look like someone from the Cartoon Network put them together. And if you want to see what that looks like, if you look at the picture for this episode, those are the logos right there. I mean, I'm serious. Someone from Cartoon Network got fired like 2 weeks before they made the announcement, and they got the job with the Trump administration to put together the logo for the Space Force. It wasn't appealing. Sorry, guys. It was horrible. Terrible job. So now this article, which I just gave you the title of from spacenews.com, pretty much is talking about Defense Secretary James Mathis and the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, who just happens to be a general, Joseph Dunford. On August 28th, they got together and they were doing like a joint press release in front of a bunch of reporters, and basically what they wanted to say was that the Defense Department is actively working with Congress in order to put together the plans and whatever legislature is necessary to make the Space Force a separate department. For all of you who sat back and thought that this was all going to end with the memes, the memes were going to come out, people were going to shit all over this idea of having a Space Force, and it's over, you can forget about it. In fact, maybe that's what they want to happen. Maybe they want everyone to forget about the Space Force and the fact that it's a real thing. Yes, Space Force sounds like it's a cartoon. It sounds like something you see in a movie, like the Power Rangers or something. The Space Force, it's real. It's a real thing. It's a happening thing. And if you don't stay on top of it, if you don't make some kind of a news alert through one of your mobile apps, you're going to get caught off guard because before you know it, a TR-3B with a Space Force logo is going to be landing in an airport near you or flying overhead, and you're going to wonder, how the hell did this all happen? Ladies and gentlemen, they're telling you already this is a real deal, and they're continuing to move forward. There is nothing to stop the Space Force from being put together, and to be honest, why should anything stop it? For all of you who believe that there are entities outside of our solar system that in some ways could be harmful to us, why shouldn't we have a Space Force? We need someone to protect us. Now, on the flip side of that, if you listen to Corey Goode and some of the other people out there, even Stephen Greer himself, there's been a Space Force in play for a very long time, decades even. It's just now that the public is starting to see the glimpse of the public side of things. You know, basically what we are supposed to see, not what some people say has been happening for years behind the scenes. But the reason why this article is important is because, you know, they continue to move forward, and the article is talking about putting together a Space Force, a legislature, and also putting a four-star general in charge of the Space Force. Fantastic. Earlier in the week, I was looking to make a podcast episode about some other news that I saw, but it paled in comparison to this because immediately what came to mind was one Stephen Greer. Now, you know Stephen Greer. You know his history. If you follow ufology, you know what Stephen Greer is all about. You know that he is a retired emergency room doctor, also aka traumologist, who is also a ufologist. Also, and by the way, unless you got an award, you are a self-proclaimed ufologist. I'm saying that right now. No fucks given. That is the Manny Moonraker observation. So if you call yourself a ufologist, you're self-proclaimed. No one gave you that title, so cut the crap. Stephen Greer, you know, I've made this observation before, and I'm going to make it again before I make the following statements about him and this whole Space Force thing. Stephen Greer is like the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde of ufology. There are parts of Stephen Greer that show through that he was a doctor. He's analytical. I mean, he breaks down evidence to the point where you just cannot say that he's full of shit or completely crazy. That is a Stephen Greer that UFO Buster Radio loves. We love that guy. Back in 2002, the Oregon Daily Emerald reported that at that point, in 2002, Stephen Greer had gathered 120 hours of testimony from the civilians and government people who were either witnesses or experienced some kind of UFO event. Folks, that was 16 years ago. Could you imagine how much he's gathered since then? But let's not play any games, because the other side of Stephen Greer is what scares everyone, especially when it comes to the CE5 protocol. Most of you have seen that video on YouTube. You've seen the video where he's sitting on a beach with a bunch of people who paid him tons of money to call down a UFO. Make contact, basically. And what we see in the video appears to be flares being dropped from a plane way in the distance over the ocean. That is the Stephen Greer that we are afraid of in ufology, because it gives us a bad rap. And that's the kind of stuff that, you know, makes him look like a quack. So that is the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde of Stephen Greer that we all have come to love, enjoy, and be really afraid of. Now, to this point, I did read an article recently on Quora. And on Quora.com, an individual wrote about meeting Stephen Greer. And, well, not actually. they interviewed a lady that met Stephen Greer. Let me get that shit straight before you guys start sending me emails. So he met this lady who basically went to a CE5 protocol. So this is what he wrote. I once met a lady who attended one of Greer's outings. We know what those are. She claims that Greer had a UFO come down, invisible of course, and land on top of them. She said that they were in the ship but couldn't see it. He actually charged people to do this. I find that highly suspicious. This is the part of Stephen Greer that's scary. This is the part that makes you wonder, what is it that he sees? I mean, did he see a working UFO? Because he charged these people to be there, and they got surrounded by air. I don't know. But this is the guy we need to be afraid of when it comes to the really flipped out crazy side of ufology and the way he sees things. Now, the reason why Stephen Greer is in this podcast episode along with the update to the Space Force is because Stephen Greer, in almost everything that he does, every documentary, he goes back to Eisenhower's farewell address. And it's really important. It's really important not that we learn the address, not that we continue to watch Greer and support him. That really is up to you. No fucks given. You do it the way you want to, because that's the way we do it. But the farewell address talks about something that may be happening right now, and that is the military-industrial complex. Greer talks about this all the time. Eisenhower talked about this in his farewell speech. Is there an important message there? Part of the speech says, in the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. Is it possible that since late last year, we've been privy to the perfect storm? Is it possible that what Stephen Greer has been talking about for years, for decades, it's happening right now with the Space Force? I mean, last year, towards the end of last year, last fall, we had those congressmen put together the bill and present it, suggesting a Space Force. Shortly after that, we saw the ATIP information come out from To the Stars Academy and Tom DeLonge. By the way, he's not a self-proclaimed ufologist. He was actually given an award, Ufologist of the Year, last year, so he's not self-proclaimed. I guess he really is a ufologist. I don't know what kind of course you need to take for that, but he got it. So he is a ufologist. Sorry, Stephen. But really, let's take a look at what's going on here. So we had a perfect storm, and just recently, Stephen Greer, in response to other rubberdickers who were rubberdicking him on Twitter, he said this: look deeper. Their spin is the alien invasion. Evil alien nonsense that benefits only the military-industrial complex. Why else is the MSM covering it? There is better evidence everywhere. Most of the To the Stars Academy team are well-known disinformation operatives. Now, is this true? Are these guys, is Elizondo a disinformation operative? Are the rest of those rubberdickers just troublemakers? Or were they actually put up by secret government officials or the dark government in order to make this situation with the military-industrial complex flow a little easier? Give people a glimpse of what's to come, and then really put forward the Space Force. These are things that are food for thought, and this is what I thought about when I read that article about the Space Force. There is no doubt that there is something going on here, and I hate to say it, but you got to give Stephen Greer the props, the due where it's due, and it is very possible that he may be entirely right about the connection between To the Stars Academy and Space Force and the government that's putting together this visible organization, and may also have a lesser-known secret organization dealing with space activities. As always, you've got to make your own conclusions. Some of you are diehard Stephen Greer fans and will not accept anything less than what he says. But, I'm not going to pay nobody thousands of dollars to sit around and have an invisible UFO surround me without me being even able to see it or do interact or whatever. I thought CE5 was about interacting with aliens. What the hell is going on, Stephen? The truth is that though he's a little kooky, the guy's a little quirky, he's a little wild and crazy, but some of the things he says from the analytical mind of an emergency room doctor may be on point. I'll be the first to say it. Something does not smell right in Denmark. I'm telling you, we need to keep an eye on the Space Force. This may be the ultimate military-industrial complex evidence that anyone could ever put together. And we might have to thank Stephen Greer for that. So hopefully this podcast episode actually sounds good. I don't know how it's going to sound like. I'll have to catch it on the replay. If you guys have not gotten a chance, go and you have an Android phone, go over to the Play Google Store and download the UBR News app. It's in the beginning stages. It's an infant. It's a baby. It needs to be fed, diaper changed, and all that kind of stuff. Burped once in a while before we get it to where we want it to be. But I need your feedback in order to do that. So you guys log in there, check it out, give me some feedback. Keep it in there. Every month I'm going to do some updates. Tomorrow we'll release the reruns episode, the next one. Manny Moonraker will be traveling next week. So hopefully there will be another UFO report episode. And again, I want to thank all you guys for listening. Don't forget to hit me up on social media. And those are Twitter at UFO Buster Radio, Manny Moonraker Facebook page, Manny Moonraker on Instagram, UFO Buster Radio Facebook page, and of course, plus Manny Moonraker on Google. And, UFOBusterRadio.com is still there. That's also going to be redesigned before the end of the year. Now, last but not least, I had a run-in with a couple of podcast hosts, and I put out a hashtag, Time to Go Rogue, because I think that a lot of your favorite podcasts out there are being railroaded by some of these big host companies because they're taking their podcast shows, they're monetizing them, but your host gets zero. Instead, you as a host have to pay in order to make any money. Does that make sense to anyone? Is it just me? Hashtag Rubber Dickers are in podcast host companies as well. So it may be possible that by January of this year, UFO Buster Radio will only be available through UFOBusterRadio.com. I'll let you know if that happens. But until then, sayonara. Have a great weekend in the U.S. It's a 3-day weekend for you guys. Everywhere else, thank you for listening. This is Manny Moonraker, and I'm about to check out. Catch you next week. Ciao.